Welcome back to Rising to the Challenge of Teaching Remotely. In our first episode, we talked about the pillars of your class, things that you should think about that you do daily with your students that are like the basis of your curriculum. In the second episode, we talked about the basic philosophy on brain science and why it's important to keep your asynchronous classes short and sweet. I didn't get into it because I was looking at the time, but I've taken enough classes as an adult to tell you, golly, they get boring. And it sure is distracting here at home with my kids running around. And hey, is that Breath of the Wild you're playing? What's Link doing right now? And I totally wasn't listening to whatever online class I was taking. So if I can't concentrate, I know my students can't concentrate. So try to keep things short and sweet so they can concentrate, all right? Today, this episode, we're going to talk about ideas for games because during your synchronous time, you want to keep your students as engaged as humanly possible. You don't want them getting bored. You want them using the language. You want them interacting with the language, and you want them finding relevance with the language. So I'm going to show you just a bunch of wacky ideas for games. Hopefully it'll give you a springboard so you can say, hey, that looks good, but I want to change it this way. Yeah, go for it. So I'm thinking I'll probably cut this episode into part A and part B because I do want to keep things at the 10-minute length or less. And I've got so many ideas bursting at the seams that it's probably going to go on for a long time. Plus, I'm a pretty long-winded woman and I like to talk. So I'm sure you've already done show and tell. You tell your students, find something that you really like and show it to the class and describe it. And so whatever they've got in the hand, pets are absolutely wonderful for this. Of course, everyone loves showing off their pets. Even, stupid things they find, whatever you can get them to grab and show to the camera and talk about in the target language, that's all golden. But you've been there, done that. You're ready to take it to the next level. And maybe you've even tried scavenger hunt, the sister of show and tell, which is go find me something blue. And this is actually, scavenger hunt is really great for those early first stages of the silent period when your students are too afraid to speak up, especially I find in the online environment, they don't like hearing the sound of their own voice. So having them find something and just show it to you without speaking is a good way to bridge between when they're introduced to the language and when they actually start making the vocal utterances that they need to make. So you get them to go run around and find something and bring it back. And then when they're good enough, you have them describe it. You can do the old standby, the chain drill. I don't normally like doing chain drills because that leaves too many people passive. What happens in a chain drill is you ask the first student, hey, how you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. Okay, now you ask Bob how he's doing. Oh, Bob, how are you doing? Oh, sorry, that's not Bob, that's Eddie. I always just make up names. Eddie, how's Eddie doing? Eddie, how are you doing? Eddie says, I'm great. How are you? And he has the conversation. Then he goes, hey, Lynn, how are you doing? And Lynn says, I'm fine. Thank you very much. And then Lynn asks Lucy. Okay, so you can do the chain drill. The way to make it less passive in the online environment is make sure that the students are using the chat box. And while they're waiting their turn, let them type in their own answers. Let them type in their crutches that they're going to need when it's their turn to speak, whatever. Let them talk about what Lynn is wearing. Let them talk about how Bea looks really happy today or whatever, so that everyone's using the language and not just sitting passively waiting for their turn. But my absolute favorite way to handle this is just my regular roll call because I have to take attendance, right? So the student comes in and I say, oh, hi, Lily, how are you today? And Lily says, I'm fine. And this is video number 3, and I'm going to talk about this now, okay? So I would have a screen like this up. Lily would come in and I'd say, how are you doing, Lily? And she says, I'm fine, because that's the easy thing that all the students know how to do by this point. And then we have some vocabulary that we're working on this week. And, for this week that I just happened to randomly choose, it was, do you cook at your house? Okay. And so I'd ask every student that, and then I would ask a bonus question. You see underneath here I have hidden. These are words, these are phrases that we've been working on in previous weeks, but the students all got really good at them, so there's no reason for me to ask them every single time. So they just randomly, I pull out, hey, what do you like to eat? Okay, so Lily answers, and then maybe next time Junior comes in. I'm like, hey, Junior, how you doing? And he says, I'm fine. And then, oops, there's the one right there. I say, hey, Junior, do you cook at your house? And he says, nah, I don't cook at my house. And then I give him his bonus, his random question. Oh, do you have a polka dotted pen? Are you a crocodile? We were working on the difference between do you have and are you, because students mess that up all the time. And so he would answer that. After a while of doing this, like after, 3 weeks or so, all the students are so good at any random question I could give them, plus the question of the week. I would say, surprise, surprise, guys, I'm putting this in as a test. You all get 100% because you all did so well. And if a student, of course, is struggling, then you use the no opt method, no opt out. Make sure that they never, ever, ever fail on this every single day. And then when you get to the point when you're like, oh, okay, I want to give a test, a quote unquote test on this, your students are all going to be aces at it. They're all going to be absolutely wonderful because you've been drilling it every single day when you say hi to them. Breakout rooms. Let's talk about breakout rooms. Now, as I experimented with them, I decided I'm not a huge fan of breakout rooms. My school Wi-Fi is not very good, and it took me, it takes me about a minute and a half to get into a breakout room. And by the time I'm there, whatever conversation I had the students start on, they're already done with it. If I have 30 students in a class and I make 10 breakout rooms with 3 students per breakout room, by the time I get to breakout room number 10, they are all done a long time ago. So I was very frustrated with breakout rooms, and these are the things that I experimented with. Okay, so I decided I need to give the students something to work on, not just to work on, but you need to report back to me about how your team did, because that kept them working a little bit longer, and that kept them from staring at each other, because of course a lot of times they'd just be too embarrassed. So they had to report back on that. Whatever things I happened to give them. So I had them take notes. That helped a little. I gave them sentence frames, of course, so that they wouldn't forget what they were working on. And I find that when you type it in the chat box, it's better than if you just broadcast it to them. If you broadcast it, sometimes it's really, really tiny writing and they can't see it very well. Giving them a bingo sheet to fill out also is pretty good, because then they're focused on that. More fun, if you're going to send them to a breakout room, you want them to be working for quite a while, because it takes the students a good minute and a half to get into the breakout room themselves, and it takes you a minute and a half to get to each breakout room. So give them a role play. Maybe a loose script. Hey, work on these words so they know what they're doing. And some good ideas. Our job interview is always pretty standard, and it's very easy for them just to ask themselves bulleted questions. They can play store and pretend that they're helping somebody buy something. They could do a sports interview. They could be a waiter and a customer. Any role play that you would give them. Oops, that's because I'm using the touchpad instead of a mouse. Any role play you could give them in the classroom, they could do passably well in a breakout room. Let me see if there's anything else I want to say about breakout rooms. Oh, the one more thing I would do in breakout rooms, but I do this often on Pixton, but breakout rooms were okay, is I like to play Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's one of my very favorite TV shows. The actual game is you give the actors 2 lines apiece that they stick in their pockets, and they're random lines, and they go through some role play, and then at random times they pull out of their pocket one of the lines, and they have to work the line into the skit. And we use Duolingo sentences because they are super fun. There are a couple more things I'll do with breakout rooms that are super fun. But because we've reached our 10-minute mark, I'm going to pause the video here, get up and stretch, go grab a drink of water, and then come back and watch the next video when you're ready.